Hi, good afternoon, morning or evening, whatever time it is that you're actually watching or listening to this video from Question the Narrative. Just want to say thank you to everybody who's commented, subscribed, given us some great feedback, so thank you very much. The last time that I checked, I think we've got like 14 subscribers. It doesn't sound like anything, but I don't really know any of these names. I know a couple, but other than that, you know, people are coming our way, so thank you very much for that. Today we are going to do a video on Antarctica.
Okay.
So we've actually done this round about 4 or 5 times, in all honesty. This would be like now our 6th, I think. We've actually got videos where it actually says, oh, this is our 2nd time of doing it, and the reason being is because every single time that we continue our own research to do further videos, we then decide to kind of add this bit in and, you know, re-edit and then sometimes just completely scrap and start all over again. So hopefully, fingers crossed, there won't be too much editing in this particular video, and it goes kind of smoothly as possible. But here goes.
So just another quick point on that one as well. For what we're going to go through today is we've kind of chopped in, because like Dawn said, there was so much information to go through. We've kind of kept it down to what just to put it in a bit for you to start researching, and, you know, somewhere for you to start off with. And we will come on it at a later time and we will go into each section in detail, because there's so much information in all of it. But we'll go into each of the sections individually at some later date and go through the, you know, full information of what came from there. And,
you know, expand it out. So yeah, we're kind of expecting to do a bit of a 3-parter. So we're going to do a overall view of it for you within this video, which we're kind of expecting to be around about 45 minutes. We're going to put some screenshots up and we're going to do some random factoids at the end. But the breakdown of it is going to be ancient history, current or modern history, and then the present day. And it's those 3 particular sections that are going to be taken out and then expanded on. So there's a bigger view just with regards to the tech and how far it goes back. And
yeah.
So there's so much information on there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, in this one we're basically like, so we'll move on to ancient and we'll go through and then explain why we said Antarctica was the first one to explain, basically in the sort of current section afterwards of why you need to know about this. Okay. The asteroid belt, where it currently is, between Mars and Jupiter. Now there is evidence to show, and we'll pop up the links so you can have a look at the videos or the source material for it, that the asteroid belt field was originally and prior to, like I said, 500,000 years ago, as a planet referred to as a super Earth planet called or referred to Maldek. Maldek had an advanced civilization on it. Mars was a moon of Maldek, and also had an advanced civilization on it, and proposed that these Martians were technologically advanced. Just a quick side note in regards to these people from Mars, the Martians, who we'll be referring to as from now on as the pre-Adamites, because that is what they're referred to as. Pre-Adamites, pre-Adam, before humans, and these are the ones in our future videos about the kind of the ruling classes in this world, or the ruling families. So these pre-Adamites essentially infiltrated into Earth and into our sort of ancient Egypt through the Roman Empire, and through the Catholic Church, through the Vatican, through the current families that rule the world, and various other means as well. Around prior to 500,000 years, Mars was a moon of Maldek. Maldek was supersized Earth kind of planet, and both had civilizations on it. They've been warring for quite a long time, and essentially it accumulated in, like I said, about 500,000 years ago, that Mars ended up destroying Maldek. Now the debris, or the ensuing sort of destruction in the debris, slammed into Mars, destroying half the civilization and dwellings on the planet. It also nearly decimated its atmosphere, certainly to a point where there was no, essentially you couldn't live on the surface. So it is believed that these pre-Adamites then moved into sort of inner Mars, as it were, and also moved around 445,000 years ago, moved to the moon and sort of started, as it were, colonizing on there. There's evidence to support this from Russian cosmonauts of the, I believe it was an unmanned satellite that took pictures of the moon running up to the race to be first on the moon between sort of America and Russia. And they've got a couple of very interesting photos where there's a 12 mile high, I'll say that again, sorry, a 12-mile high tower, which can be seen, a white tower jutting out from the surface of the moon. You can go and have a look at that. We'll try and pop it up here. And also on the next kind of frame, or the next photo taken, it was there is a glass dome, what looks like a crystalline, almost like a green tinge to it, a crystalline dome, smashed in dome that's there. Now, originally thought to be sort of glass or some sort of crystalline structure, is now believed to be clear aluminium, and we'll put some links up again. You can have a look at that. There's even a video on YouTube where it shows them, kind of like this company shows, look, we can now make clear aluminium, and it's this strong, this time stronger than glass, than bulletproof glass and things like that. Okay, so that's what was going off there. So for the next few 100,000 years, they essentially carried on the moon, and around 55,000 years, a advanced civilization attacked the settlement on the moon, believed to be of reptilian origin, essentially the Draco reptilian, which we'll come on to in another video to show you the evidence for that. And they attacked the settlements on the moon, so and kind of decimated the area. The refugees, the remaining pre-Adamites, then made their way to Earth. And now, what they essentially did was land on what we would call in our history Atlantis. Now, just to give you a bit of history into what I mean about this, essentially there have been catastrophes in our kind of modern history, yeah, I'll say it, in our modern history, where there's been catastrophes every 50,000 years, 25,000 years, and 12,500 years. Okay, there's evidence to show that these were geophysical pole shifts, and the one that happened 12,500 years actually caused, and what is written as the biblical flood, what's in other religious scriptures across the planet and across the ages, as being the flood, and the flood that essentially buried or sank Atlantis. So what essentially this geophysical pole shift is, have a look at Charles Hapgood's work, and essentially what happens is the crust, or the Earth itself, physically moves position quite violently, quite suddenly, and this causes obviously catastrophes on the surface, which being flooding and various things like that, disruption of the electromagnetic field of the Earth, causing obviously radiation effects and various other things like that. So this is what happens. So prior to that one, Antarctica, or the landmass under Antarctica, wasn't where it was. It was closer to the equator. There's evidence to show this. The test that had been done shows it had a tropical climate. What's that?
I just wanted you to breathe.
Okay. Tropical climate. Yeah, it would help with it. Give me a second. Yeah, so they had a tropical climate, and there's evidence to show this. We'll try and link it below that. So meaning they had a tropical climate meant it wasn't in its current location. It would be closer to the equator, hence the warmer weather. So they landed on Atlantis, which is Antarctica. And the reason why they landed there is because there is already evidence to show that there's technology and base there from a civilization that's about 1.6 billion years old. They came into our solar system at some point, and that's why they landed there. There's already tech there. It makes sense. There's essentially a base already built in the sort of in the crust of the Earth, going into the sort of the layers of it, built by advanced civilization. Why wouldn't you take up that space and use that? You might find tech and all sorts of things.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so that's what they did, and carried on kind of living there. So that was around sort of 55,000 years ago. Basically carried on for the next few hundred thousand years, until the geophysical shift came at 12,500 years. causing massive flooding, causing Atlantis essentially, or the Earth to move, putting Atlantis in its current position in Antarctica. Massive floods, and then due to the breakdown of the magnetic field and the atmosphere, it essentially flash froze over. And there's evidence to support this in the things like the frozen mammoths that have been found in Antarctica, flash frozen over with food still in its mouth and stomach. So you can go and have a look at the evidence for that. We'll try and pop it up on the screen and be all flash. So that's what happened, and essentially what happened from kind of 12,500 years to going into what Dawn's going to come on later on with the current history, as it were. But they carried on infiltrating with the remaining pre-Adamites that survived this great flood, and carried on and started infiltrated. Then, you know, they came along the ancient Egyptians, which, as we know, that Rome then at some point attacked and sacked and whatnot. So the pre-Adamites from there then infiltrated the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire carried on and became the Roman Catholic Church. So they infiltrated into there. The Roman Catholic Church carried on, and obviously in the current day, the Vatican and the current, obviously, Roman Catholic Church. And so that's kind of like the lineage, and just in regards to the ancient times, and moving on to sort of more coming on to current history of what happened and where, why sort of Antarctica is so important. So
you don't know where you're going if you don't know where you're from. So if you don't actually really know the history of Antarctica and what's been hidden from us.
Yeah.
You know, and the fact that it's literally been hidden there as well. So everything about it, then obviously, you know, how can you move forward? How can we stop being in this cycle?
Exactly, yeah. So this is what you need to kind of get your head around and understand about this is why we've gone through the ancient side, that, you know, even prior to looking at Antarctica, about, you know, if you like the modern history, you know, we'll come on to this section, or, you know, but looking at stuff like why Plato talked about it, why there's maps of it showing the Piraeus map being the most famous from, I think it's 1512, Piraeus map done for an admiral of the Turkish, I believe, admiral of the Turkish Navy, of a map where it shows Antarctica without the ice. So where did they get this from? Because apparently Antarctica, we were told, has ice on it, or has had ice on it for millions of years. Which is, you know, then it shows, well, where did they get this from? Looking at the conspiracy side, or the truth and community about Antarctica, and about the whole, good lord, about Antarctica and the whole, you know, going into the inner Earth, which we'll come on to later. But looking at that side of it, and the truth and community, excuse me, we find out that, you know, obviously that's why Antarctica is important. That, you know, that there was, even looking back prior to, you know, where we come from, which was these pre-Adamites, the fallen angels, there was already, you know, a civilization that had been there for potentially billions of years. So yeah, so that's kind of like, it's, you know, like I said, ancient history, and just so you understand, you know, what's down there and why it's important. So the next section we're going to come on to is its current history, and this is there's a lot of information on this one, because this really ties into, and obviously leading into, we should come on to the current, and this is just so much information in this one. So when we do, going back to when we do the 3 videos, the bigger sections, this section will be the biggest one, I reckon. Will be the longest video, should I say.
So moving on to current modern history, get to World War II. So the Allied forces, UK, USA, basically thought that they would win the Second World War based on numbers, based on quantitative means. So lots of men on the ground, lots of boots, lots of guns, lots of grenade, tanks, planes, a lot of everything that they had, and kind of see what sticks, throw it all at the board scenario. Whereas the Germans were based on a qualitative means. So they were basically going to win the war because they've got better technology, better information, things like that. And how they did that was by looking at all across the world, all the esoteric information, all of the sciences and the teachings that were out there. So the pre-20th century, the Nazi and occult societies like the Vril, Thule, Black Sun, for example, all basically went out on various missions to have a look for anything that we would actually class as spiritual, mythical, esoteric. So that would be things like the Spear of Destiny. You know, Maria Orsic, who was part of the Vril, is said to have been having conversations about the Spear of Destiny. You've got the Vimanas, the Vedic teachings as well. With the Mahabharata, they went to Tibet, with regards to inner earth. So that was the kind of stuff that they were bringing to this war, essentially. Whereas we've just got guns and bullets and.
From the research, essentially everything that we consider is conspiracy theory, and in that realm, is what they have gone out to look for. Everything, essentially I've looked at a lot. It's in the films. We'll do a separate one on the films and kind of show you what's out there. But have a look at it. They went after everything like that because they knew it to be true.
Yeah, essentially. So whilst on their missions to go out and find all of these teachings, these writings, these books, these artifacts, anything that they could basically get their hands on. They came across Antarctica, which is obviously a perfect place to kind of set up camp, mainly because when the pre-Nazi occult societies got there, they actually found formed caves and caverns, rooms. So the availability to bunker down and hide anything that you may not want to be shown with the rest of the world yet is prime location, isn't it?
Yeah. We've had, when we have a look, when we get into the pre-Adamites and when we get into the ancient Builder races and the general sort of species out there and the sizes that they tend to be, a lot of them are a lot bigger than their average is a lot bigger than our average, shall we say. So if you imagine that this potential ancient Builder race may have been, 15 foot plus tall, so the rooms are going to be massive. So when you're looking at scale that up in regards to hangars, in regards to everything that they have there, space-wise, it's going to be a lot bigger. So you can put in us being at our average to put in our tech and our people and resources in there. The space is bigger, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Everything's scaled up.
Yeah. Essentially, that's it. Yeah.
So when they came across Antarctica, they moved all of the technology, teachings, everything it was that they found on these quests and on these missions. They moved everything there alongside of any workforce that they had. The Vril were working obviously alongside of the Thule and the other secret societies as well. The reason why the Vril is quite important is because it brings me on to Maria Orsic. Maria Orsic is one of the main mediums in the secret society that's called the Vril, which means godlike. And she just basically downloaded or received transmissions from Nikola Tesla, called it the Divine. And the transmissions that she received, she made the Thule and the Black Sun Society and anybody else who was kind of at that particular level and part of the posse as such, aware that she was receiving these transmissions in 1919 in a hunting lodge in Berchtesgaden in southwest Germany. Now, when I went into the hunting lodges into that particular location, I found that Hermann Göring actually owned a hunting lodge at that time. So it makes sense that that's going to be that particular location. It may not be, I may be drawing a connection that may not actually be there, but it makes sense because obviously he was part of the Nazi party.
In Berchtesgaden, and that's where Maria Orsic and the Vril Society went. Interesting enough, Vril as well is also the name used to, not to describe it, is another name for the kind of like the energy around us in space. So what zero point energy will access, prana, chi, and all that. But that all comes from the same area. So that is Vril also refers to that.
So when Maria was receiving this information and she was relaying it back, what she was stating was that it was instructions on how to build a circular flying machine, which is obviously the qualitative science, the qualitative technology that obviously boots on the ground can't compare with and can't compete with either. In 1943, she received further communications from the same origin as to the transmission that she received in 1919 as well. And this origin was said to be Aldebaran, which is 68 light years away in the constellation of Taurus. And apparently it's a dimension or a portal, a wormhole that's open up between the two solar systems. That was part of the information that she was receiving as well. But in this particular transmission in 1943, it was translated by Maria and another medium called Sigrun. And it is said that the written language is identical to that of the Sumerian language, but phonetically similar to that of the German spoken word.
Right, just a couple of points before we go on, if it's okay.
Yeah.
So just to link in there, why we went over Maria or Sigyn, why we're going through. So the downloads that she got to build the disc-like craft. Now, where we type that in is if you have a look at the D-Glock video, you can type that in on YouTube. There is some decent ones. There's a 15-minute one. I'll try and link it below. There is a full like an hour and so documentary on it as well, which is really good. But yeah, have a look at the 15-minute one because that goes in deeper. But that's the D-Glock test. That's also showing the base kind of in the where this sort of test film has been done, where it also shows the disc-like craft with the Nazi the symbols on and to scale in regards to how big it is in comparison to sort of humans. It's very good. But so that kind of ties in. This is why Maria is so kind of pivotal in it, because as we're going to go through with the timeline and as we are going through why Antarctica is so important, she was pivotal because her download of the schematics was what built the D-Glock, the Hanabu 2, is it? Or Hanabu 2, yeah. And essentially all the ET craft.
So that's in 1943, and coincidentally at this particular time there was a convoy of U-boats that went from Germany over to Argentina, dropping a few people off, and this convoy was actually called the Führer convoy. And it doesn't take too much of a guess or a wild assertion as to assume who it is that's actually going to be part of that convoy. Führer means guide, leader, and it's actually what people called Hitler. So it makes complete sense that he has literally ensconced over. We think that on the surface of it, totalitarian rule is completely defeated in 1945, but 18 months before that, he's actually gone over to Argentina, and the Nazi scientists, researchers, the occult societies have taken everything and everyone that they need to continue whatever research, whatever ideology it is that they're wanting to bring forward into Antarctica. Like I said earlier on, it's a prime location to do so. Now that was 1945, the end of World War II, and then we get into Operation High Jump. And we bring in Richard E. Byrd. So he was the admiral and basically the key figure of a particular expedition all the way to Antarctica. It was completely funded by the US Navy. It was completely limitless as well with regards to the amount of funds that Richard was able to have. Now his fleet consisted of 4,800 troops, 13 planes, aircraft carriers, 2 seaplanes, and then obviously any ammunition and anything else that he may have needed as well. So 4,800, and Richard actually did a interview where he stated that this particular expedition was military in nature, but everything else that's out there states otherwise. It actually states that it's scientific, but that's a huge fleet to have if it's just scientific. Now this particular expedition was meant to last around about 6 months. But after 2 months, he completely retreated, because when he got there, he was just faced with something that he was just completely unprepared to be able to deal with. When he retreated, he said that he came across flying discs that could fly unobstructed at incredible speeds from pole to pole. He also stated that the next war would be from an adversary from the west. And he also stated that, because there was a loss of life as well, unfortunately, but basically some of the planes just went into an energy wall or a sea of like nothingness, but basically they hit something but nothing that he could see, and the planes just completely disintegrated in front of his eyes. And the only thing that I can think of because obviously your imagination does start going then. But then we have Hollywood that can kind of fill in some gaps for us, and it just reminds me of Infinity Wars and Black Panther with the energy shield, and knowing what we know with regards to obviously the transmissions and Nikola Tesla with the 0-point energy. It's not actually out of the realms of possibility to even think that it was something
not
like
at
that.
all. It's not even a case of saying it's not out of the realms. Once you start looking into the science of these things, you start realizing it's quite apparent.
This is true.
It really is. It's not hard to understand. People, you know, there is that side where people still go, ooh, you know, flying discs and that. But when you start looking into the science, which we'll come on to later on, which is what quantum physics and quantum mechanics and everything is now starting to explain, because theoretical physics had hit a dead end. So then they introduced the quantum mechanics, which explains a bit about how essentially the real world science of it being is how the ether works and everything, and how the universe is electrical. But we'll come on to that in a separate video. But yeah, so these things are, you know, very, very, you know, possible. It's just the science is what have been hidden from us.
Yeah. So on the surface of it, World War II is over. We've defeated totalitarian rule. Everybody is love and light. You've got all the military boys in the street kissing all the girls. You know, those classic iconic pictures that were in front of all the local papers. And then apparently Hitler commits suicide in his bunker. But actually that didn't happen at all, because as stated, 18 months before the end of World War II, there was a trip over to Argentina at the same time that Maria was receiving the transmissions on how to, you know, build flying discs and this, that and the other.
And again, we'll do a separate video, but there is, again, a lot of evidence. All of this that we're going through is this, like I said, if some of this stuff you're going, what? Go and research it, have a look on Bibliotecapleyades or whatever, you know, YouTube it. You can have a look at the evidence, because there's a lot of other people who've been doing this a lot longer than us and a lot better than us.
Yeah.
Where you can go and have a look at all the information. All we're doing is what we've found. So we'll link that in later on. Yeah, that's simply it. Yeah.
So that's 1946, 1947 with Operation High Jump. Coincidentally enough, around about 1947, the CIA was formed, and then 1952. Operation or Project Paperclip, because you can research them under both names as well.
You can. I believe it is Operation Paperclip, but you can get it under Project Paperclip
under Project as well.
Yeah.
And that is just basically the transference of everybody and everything that's in Antarctica into the US government via the aid of the military-industrial complex that then became the Central Intelligence Agency, which, as you may or may not know, is a government within a government. It's dirty and seedy, looks after itself, and it's had a massive agenda since the day it was formed, which is the reason why JFK Sr. Wanted to basically splinter it into the wind, as he said, splinter it into 1,000 pieces and cast it into the wind. Now, the people that came over from Antarctica, just to drop a couple of names, just to give you a bit of a profile as to how these people were and the stuff that they were working with. We've got Joseph Mengele, who went into the US government, who, you know, via the military-industrial complex, and he is a massive doctor. He's like the godfather of like mind control, MK Ultra. And then we also have Werner von Braun, which created the V2 rocket. Apparently the actual labour and, you know, the handwork that built the rocket was actually slave labour, which also ties in with what I said earlier on about if you're wanting to continue something on, you're going to need to have a workforce. So I'm assuming that it's...
Yeah. Well, it's not even a case of assuming. There is a big case. I mean, if you have a look at current... sidetracking a bit, but have a look at current day Pizzagate, kind of that situation, and have a look at, we'll come on to it again on a separate video, but there's information there in regards to how it works about having war zones in countries where large quantities of people are displaced and become refugees, because at that point there's no trail. You don't actually know how many people or who is there in exact numbers. So what tends to happen on there is that there's cases of hundreds of thousands of kids going missing from these refugee camps in Europe. I think they're in Germany somewhere, I believe. That's not 100%, but in Europe definitely. So that's how it's done. Now you imagine that on a world war scale, of what was happening in Europe. You've got access to not only the nefarious stuff, but well, nefarious anyway, but then you've got slave labour.
So yeah, those are a couple of the names that have gone from Antarctica into the US government, CIA, into big pharma, education, religion, everything that is a macro institution, everything and everybody that we are told to trust has essentially been created from this particular hub, really.
Yeah, there's again, have a look at the map, all the stuff that the Nazis were doing in regards to the experimentation. Joseph Mengele was doing the sort of experimentation on the kids in regards to the MK Ultra. Have a look at Fiona Barnett. She mentions, I believe, it's Fiona Barnett who mentions Joseph Mengele as her handler when she was about 4 years old, as the caring father / grandfather figure. Werner von Braun, it's all there. That's what they did. And so have a look at the trail of what's kind of happening now. That's literally what happened. It's just the takeover and bringing them over. And like Dawn said, it's just infiltration. Of everything. All those scientists doing the experimentation. Which where let's have a look at where the best. You get the best kind of amount of people volunteering to have experimentation done on college. College is a good one. Universities, and that's where the
Tavistock Institutes and things like that.
Yeah, and in America it would be Harvard and all that stuff, wouldn't it? So
and Stanford.
Yeah, Stanford and all that. So that's where the scientists went, because they had access to people who were willing to be, because they were paid a few hundred or £1,000 to do the experiments, and they could carry on doing that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that was done there. After that's when the CIA started doing the experimentation to do with telepathy and telekinesis and things like that. Doing astral projection and all that stuff. So yeah, that all came from, not to say that they weren't doing it already themselves, but a lot of it came from the
kickstart,
the Nazi Germany that infiltrated.
Yeah, which is the reason why it's so important to understand what is going on. That's the reason why it's so important to understand what has happened at Antarctica previously, because the information that's going to be coming out about Antarctica now, and has already over the last couple of years, has been dripping out via the mainstream media. If you're not aware of what has happened and what is available to us, then there's a possibility that it's going to either cause some massive fear for people, which is unnecessary, but obviously understandable if you're not aware of something. The biggest fear is fear of the unknown, and obviously that's what the mainstream media and everybody who wants to keep us held down and enslaved wants. Project Fear.
Well, exactly. We don't want a response of kind of I forget who did it. Who did the War of the Worlds radio broadcast in the early 20th century? Everybody panicked in New York. We don't want a case of that. We don't want a case of where, when this information comes out, we get blinded and start worshipping these people because of the agenda, which we'll come on to in a second, about them being our gods and whatnot.
Because there is an end game to Antarctica, and what it is that the deep state cabal have in mind for us. And obviously, if you know anything about the deep state or the cabal, then you obviously know that any agenda is nefarious when it comes to them, when it's inflicted upon us.
Recap going about, like I said, 500,000 years ago, Maldek, Mars and Moon, civilizations, war, Mars destroys Maldek, debris smashes into Mars, decimates half the planet, can't live on there, go inside the Earth, go to the Moon. 445,000 years ago, massive sphere, like I said, have the link for the 12-mile-hour tower, smashed in dome. Moved about 55,000 years ago, come to Atlantis, Antarctica, because of the pre-post geophysical pole shift. Carry on in the civilization, ancient Egypt, moving to our current structure, moving on World War II, like we said, as Don went through in regards to project, how they infiltrated into the US, and how Antarctica was pivotal, because on top of the ancient pre-Adamite and the ancient Builder race, there was also tech now from the Nazis in there. Okay, so moving on to kind of what's happening from there at the moment. Basically, the Cabal are looking to use Antarctica as their limited hangout, part disclosure, to distract us when information starts coming about of the horrible things that they've been doing, to distract us from that, and to kind of give us a little a treat which makes us forget about what they've done, or kind of go, look, well, yeah, I know they've done that, but look what they've given us. Okay,
it's like a false sense of security, guys. You know, as soon as it all starts dropping with regards to their crimes against humanity and what it is that they've actually done, they're going to bring it out as though, you know, it's fine, don't worry, look at what we've got for you. And unfortunately, if you don't look further than that and what it is that they want to do with that, then you're going to fall on their side. And that's just as simple as it is, really. They will be holding information back. That's the reason why it's called a partial disclosure. They're not giving you the full information. You're still going to be enslaved until you start looking into everything yourself. And obviously we'll put the links further down below, and then you can just follow yourself from there, really.
So going back to our first video, this is what we said, is that we're doing this because we are essentially we're slaves on the planet. The world's controlled by this elite cabal, and it's essentially getting to a point where through kind of basically situations out of our control, this is what's happening at the moment, and we're just trying to spread the word so people know what's happening and where it's coming from. So Antarctica, current day, and this is where they're doing like I said, the Cabal will look to do their partial disclosure, as well as the partial disclosure, to kind of cover their crimes and give us something to keep their control over us. They will also eventually look to do a kind of like, oh look, the elite leading families, the Cabal, they link back to these pre-Adamites who are, you know, the gods, the fallen angels, and basically kind of do like almost like a these elites are kind of like the demigods, and we should follow them, and this sort of thing, which obviously their agenda or their religion or whatever you want to call it is Luciferian, and the SRA and everything, and to bring that out as essentially the religion of the New World Order, which is led by the Cabal, as being their cattle. So that's the main part of it. Now, what's kind of going off from there? And before I go into this, just so you can, if you want to research it, because the next kind of reference I give, or who to go and watch for this, they explain it again, as we said with other stuff, so much better than us. So have a look at the Corey Goode / David Wilcock video on the Antarctica Atlantis video. I'll link it below. There's Edge of Wonder have done some amazing ones on it as well. Have a look at that. Obviously, have a look at the Michael Salla videos that he's done on it, because he's like the main guy on it. It's from what we've done.
Linda Moulton Howe.
Linda Moulton Howe, yeah. So so have a look at those in regards to the full information. But in there, there's essentially the information that we're kind of getting is that all the tech, all the bases and everything which are in Antarctica, that's why it's so pivotal. It is essentially our history. We were kind of developed through intelligent design, I suppose. What they've been doing, and again, these are on the videos, but just a couple of points so you can kind of get you start thinking and open up your kind of views on it a bit, so you can start researching. Since 2002, they've been down there doing excavations, archaeological digs, and have been recording documentaries. So they've got 17 years, interestingly enough, 17 years worth of documentaries. And I'm going to make this assumption, but I'm pretty sure I'm right, as documentaries will do. So they'll start off with something, not to say minor, but something that isn't like, look, we found, you know, ET, we found, you know, ships or anything. They'll start off with some form of settlement or buildings that have been found to be old, and work it from there onwards. So that's what the Cabal is looking to do.
Yeah, bit by bit, drip, drip.
Okay, so this is like going to be like a slow disclosure to, as we said, to control and just give us a bit of a tidbit, and eventually bring this whole thing about where they are our gods, and we should follow them. So that's the slow disclosure. Now, interesting point on that one as well, in talking about this, because we've got the Cabal, the bad guys, the Empire, and then we've got the Alliance. Now, the Alliance, there's different factions of the Alliance. So we've got the Earth Alliance, which is obviously the guys kind of working obviously on Earth in all these three-letter agencies and whatnot around the world, and who've got together. Then we've got the Secret Space Program Alliance. Now this is a big tie, and we'll do a separate video on the Secret Space Program, but I'll mention this as well because this ties into Antarctica again, because all the craft from Nazi Germany was there, the pre-Adamites, the ancient builder race. Essentially what happened is when under Project Operation Paperclip, when the Nazis were brought over, what essentially happened is that Antarctica became the essentially headquarters for the secret space program, and there's at least 4 different
hence the treaties and everything that's being written up about Antarctica.
Have a look at the documentaries on it.
Countries are involved in that as well.
Yeah, there's the Antarctica Treaty and everything, which was a case of it. Well, you know, but this is why. So the secret space program was also being run out of Antarctica, and actually were prior to this current cabal and everything in the current situation, because Nazi Germany did that, because Nazi Germany, the Lunar Operation Command, the base on the moon, which when we have a look into that, and again, if you have a look at the Goode and the David Wilcock videos on Divine Cosmos, you'll see that the Lunar Operation Command is actually, the original structure was a swastika. So, you know, again, we'll present evidence.
And that was pretty much after Paperclip, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The
so,
LOC.
Yeah, I think the LOC actually I think it was done before. I think it was done actually prior by the Nazis had already gone out and started building, essentially. I think that's why, again, we're back to that point of how many people did actually die in the gas chambers at Auschwitz and things like that, or how many were taken off planet to be slaves to build, you know, a new settlement on the moon, a space base.
Or for entertainment.
Yeah.
There would be lots of reasons why that you would take someone.
Yeah.
You know, take is just a nice sanitized word for traffic. Really.
So we've got the Earth Alliance, which the Earth Alliance wants to do essentially. So we've got, okay, let me go through the alliances. We've got Earth Alliance, we've got Secret Space Alliance, we've got the Sphere Being Alliance, and we've kind of got there's a Pete Peterson and his guys kind of who are linked in with the Earth Alliance, but they've got a slightly different view on what they want to do. So the Earth Alliance wants to do a part disclosure using the documentaries and the information from Antarctica to do, not a part disclosure, a disclosure, but over kind of like 50 to 100 years. So by 50 to 100 years, they'll have disclosed all the information about, you know, the 0-point energy, the spaceships, ET, yada, 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 all that stuff. The Secret Space Program Alliance wants to do essentially a kind of like a full disclosure now, which they said was a full disclosure, but there's information coming out that it may actually be just a partial disclosure now, and then bring the other stuff out later. Then there's the Sphere Being Alliance, which are like a high ascended ET race, old, or alliance of races, old ancient races, which want us to do, and have contacted through Goode again, watch the videos, Divine Cosmos and whatnot, fantastic, and have gone, you need to do full disclosure now. And then, like I said, there was Pete Peterson's people, and the only reason I mentioned then is because Pete Peterson and his people have given information to Wilcock, and who's taken it back to Corey, and Corey's gone, you shouldn't know that. So it's kind of coming out that there's kind of like a divide.
Different sources with the same information telling the same people.
Yeah.
So how, you know.
So going on that basis, the reason why we're doing this is to give you all the information, is so because we want, essentially, I'm assuming everybody wants a full disclosure now. We've had enough of the lies and everything. Let's get rid of the crap. Let's release everything. Let's, you know, move on to the society what we should be. A civilization that we should be, and we are, but it's being hidden from the majority of us. So that's where we're kind of at, you know.
Although we're not the society, you did say that, you know, the society that we should be, that we are. I just need to say that we're not the society.
No, not that we are, that we should be. That's what I meant. Apologies if I said that. It says the society that we should be.
Yeah.
And that's why we're giving this information out, to make sure you know it all. So hopefully, when enough people know it, there'll be a well, not hopefully, there will be enough, once enough people know it, there will be kind of like action that will take place, and that will force disclosure, or force it that as a general consciousness disclosure essentially happens anyway, if that makes sense.
Kind of just not digressing, because obviously everything is connected, but one of the things that will happen when people start talking about this and researching more and digging into it is the solar flash. You know, it's all about the one consciousness, about the energy that's out there. And without going into the Schumann resonance or into anything about the solar flash, we will do another video on that if you want, and anything that's going to be on the Q maps at the back of us. We've got a new space, don't know if you can see, but it's all completely tied with that. It's almost like the, you know, snowball momentum. The more people that are talking about it, the faster it's going to get out there, and then it gets to the point where the mainstream media can't cover a story without actually being factual, because everybody will already know the truth anyways.
And that's what we're trying, like I said, the reason why we're doing this video is not for fame, it's not to try and make money off this, and, you know, it's literally to go, look, this is what's happening. The sooner enough people know, or the sooner we get this out there and there's enough people that know, the sooner we can get the technology, the sooner we can. It's not just about having, as you'll see in the videos, and if you're doing your research on the map, it's not just about having, you know, spacecrafts and having laser guns and all this stuff. It's not about that at all. In fact, it's about having technologies where, you know, the health issues aren't a problem. Where there's
no more famine, poverty.
There's nobody going starving. There's nobody going without water, like you said. There's no hunger for. It's a different way of just looking at a society. It's looking at it in regards to advancing. It would be the end of wars,
because, you know, one of the reasons why we go to war is apparently for oil and, you know, for weapons of mass destruction. Thank you very much, Mr. Tony Blair. And all that would be completely wiped out with the fact that we had this energy. So no one would actually stand up and pick up a gun and go, yes, Mr. Politician, or yes, Mrs. Politician, I will stand by you and go to war for you, because there would actually be literally no logical reason why to do that, because everyone would actually know the truth.
Yeah, that's literally, you know, that's what we're, you know,
everything, the whole paradigm would just be completely different, just completely switch everything.
Yeah, and that's what we're looking at. This is what we're, you know, again, just to reiterate, we're doing the videos because that's what we're looking at. We're looking at a jump from, you know, dealing with internal combustion engines, about, you know, high-end spec cars that cost millions of pounds, high-end cars that cost millions of pounds, that, you know, that only the super rich can buy, that can do 270 miles per hour, reaching 300, when, you know, we've got the availability of technology, and in comparison, really cheap technology to have a craft that can go anywhere, pretty much in time and space, can travel in the atmosphere at, you know, hundreds of thousands of miles per hour, do right angle turns where you don't feel the effect, that causes no pollution, that runs forever because it's got a 0-point energy device in it, you know, that travels through time as well as space, because it's all linked. And this is what we're missing out on, and it, you know, people will look at it and go, oh yeah, that's science fiction. And just to remind you, and I can't remember what scientist said it, science fiction is only science that we don't understand. It's, you know, science fiction becomes science fact once we understand it. And that's what we're going to present to you, that what we're talking about isn't kind of looking at it and going, oh, look at this amazing stuff. We're going to kind of show you the science behind it. And it's not science that is, you know, just some crazy person's written on the internet. This is coming from people who worked on these projects, who, you know, insiders who are whistleblowers, are starting to come out and go, oh, this is what I worked on. This is what, you know, E.T., you don't believe in E.T.? Okay, you know, the guy who's dissected, you know, thousands of different bodies and parts of bodies of different species. He said no one species was the same, and he'd done thousands of them. And, you know, all this is out there. Go and have a look at the links and stuff that we put on. Go and do your research, as we keep saying. And like I said, we've had a good one for this to cover all, a majority of the stuff, what's going off in regards to what's been hidden from us, our history, everything that we're going to talk about. As I keep saying it, but it's three people like you: Michael Salla, David Wilcock, Goode, Emery Smith. Okay, Linda Moulton Howe in regards to our kind of history and what's been hidden from us. So that's why we did Antarctica. I hope that's kind of explained it to you. Don't be fooled in the mainstream when they start releasing information about it, which they already have done, when it starts getting more mainstream.
Yeah.
Don't be fooled by what they're putting out there. Understand that this information has been out and has been known for decades.
So long.
What we're doing is just basically making you aware of it, I think. I mean, all this information that we're looking at when we do the extended videos, this is all out there. You can go and type it into the internet and find it yourself. You can go and watch videos of loads of people who've done videos on this stuff already. Most of the stuff that we're going to go through, the list of people that we've given you have done this already. The only reason we're doing it is because it's just time that more people need to start talking about it.
Yeah.
And we're doing it here because, like I said, here in the UK, there doesn't seem to be a lot of people that know about the bigger picture. There's people waking up about, the corruption and the political fraud and the paedophilia and the Vatican, or there's stuff in the politics, but that is the one part of it. There's another part of it, which we're going to do videos for all that as well. But the other part of it is this whole hidden thing, and it's and why.
Then you'll see how it'll all fuse together, and why the machinations and the machine is the way that it is.
Yeah, and why this ties in, I was going to say, to the UK so much is because when you look at the structure of the pyramid of the power structure, so you've got your Council of 300, then you've got your
Council of 13,
Committee of 300, Council of 13, and obviously going to Pindar and whatnot. But your Council of 13 are basically constructed of the royal families around the world, and one of the most powerful royal families in the world, if not arguably the most powerful, is the royal family, UK royal family. So that's what where again, just remember, if people are going, well, if you are watching in the UK and going, well, what's that got to do anything with what's happening at the moment? Everything, and if you're looking at Brexit or whatever it may be, everything ties into the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is that, and why it links into the UK. So we wanted to do it first is because of obviously what they're going to release, and to realise the big link in there that essentially one of the ruling families, when we show the pre-Adamite sort of side, is linked in with us. So there's Antarctica for you. You got anything else you wanted to?
I just want to go through a few names that have been down to Antarctica or have been discussing Antarctica, 0 Point Energy and ET, which can be found via the WikiLeaks drops. And I'll put the links below. If I can find my information here, that'd be great, but if not, I'll do it from the top of my head. So we've got John Kerry, who went down on election day. He had the amazing job of telling everybody that Hillary had actually lost the election. Can't imagine the atmosphere. It must have been absolutely amazing. Amazing. Trump apparently has been down there. There's been some communication via email between Shaul Mills and Howe Aberdeen, who, if you are following everything, will know that Howe is Hillary's minion as such. That's done some very nasty stuff. And she was basically saying that Cheryl can come on a trip, or they were basically talking about Cheryl tagging along to Antarctica the next time that HRC went down there. The Black Pope, is that right? Has been down there?
Yeah.
And he went down, and the land was also blessed by Patriarch Kirill. Is that right?
Yeah, not at the same time. I don't think they went to Antarctica at the same time, but
they met beforehand, and then he went over and blessed the land.
Yeah, and that's the first time in 1,000 years that those two religious representatives or leaders of the West and East and West have met in 1,000 years. That's the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we've got emails from Podesta, alongside of all his Dominoes and cheesy pizza and maps and handkerchiefs and things like that. We've also got information that says ZPE, which is 0 Point Energy, and within the same constructed sentence it also says ET. So it's quite blatantly there in full sight that the highest in the lands are basically keeping this information from us. And if they're keeping information from us that can actually release us from the daily grind and everything that we live in, then we really have to kind of sit back and question whether we should actually trust.
Sort of weeks back, there was an article that I found about the Chinese elite booking the super rich kind of booking holidays to Antarctica to visit there, and then whilst we've been doing this video, an article we saw a few days ago where that now China has got access to Antarctica or something. So there is a link in there as well. As well as that, Buzz Aldrin has been to Antarctica as well. Of people who researched into that one or have a research into it, that Buzz Aldrin went to Antarctica, and soon after going there, he was rushed to hospital. He had a heart attack, basically. The Wilcock videos, Divine Cosmos, about the most recent ones with him and Corey Goode again doing the updates about the inner Earth and Antarctica, because Corey Goode's recently been down there. About Buzz Aldrin and what basically happened. He was taken down there, and a lot of these people, when you get access to there, they're basically taken down there. You are then taken from there, because the secret space program is run out of Antarctica, in one of the craft and taken to the moon. And the craft travels so fast that the speed that apparently on the way up he was screaming, oh my god," or something along that line. And basically because of the speed travelling to the moon, essentially that caused him, being an elderly gentleman and whatnot, caused him to have a heart attack. Yeah, Buzz Aldrin's been there as well. Who else? That was it, wasn't it? So
I think that was it, to be fair.
As well as that,
there'll be hundreds of thousands that have been and that live down there, and on a permanent basis, and then there's visitors all the time. The list is it's not gonna be exhaustive.
Yeah, for the people that have been down to see it as well, there is if you do go and research Antarctica, have a look at Bibliotecapleyades and whatnot, as we said before, there is information about a lot of the kind of elites and the politicians and sort of in our history have been down there as well. That there's, for example, Abraham Lincoln has signed his name down because a lot of the elites used to go down to see where their lineage came from. So there's pre-Adamites frozen apparently in the ice and in stasis. So they used to go to Antarctica to see those. And Abraham Lincoln and one of the I don't know if it's the Queen or whether it was the Queen Mother or Prince Philip who's signed. He's got his name signed there as well.
It also wouldn't surprise me if Tony Blair's been there, in all honesty. I mean, everybody's a pawn in this, in this game of life, but he was like exceptionally close to Bush. So, and it wouldn't surprise me if Bush has been either.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all.
No. Just with how close they were and with everything that they did together with regards to Iraq, it just...
Yeah. Which again,
I could be completely wrong, however, but
there's loads of stuff, and I'm just going to put this in, and I know you probably want it in there. I keep mentioning about videos, and we should have really mentioned about every little aspect where we've talked about today. This video's linking off to do sides of it, but we'll do a link out in regards to Bush, as Dawn mentioned there, and there's a link, for example, there in regards to Bush, linking back to the royal family here as well.
Yeah.
Which again, go and do your research. It's already out there. All we're going to do is, like Dawn said before, rehash it, put it on here, put you the links, and send you on your way.
The Bush, Windsor, Saxon, Gothenburg connection.
Anything else?
No.
That's really it. That's why Antarctica. Keep an eye out for it. Don't be fooled. That's what we've got to come in and start waking people up.
If you have any questions, comments, then send them to us. Hopefully your comments are nice. If you like what it is that we're doing and what we're talking about, and the fact that we're going to be going over the Q maps, doing some Q drops, going into current news. One of the first ones that we're going to be talking about is Jeffrey Epstein, and then we're going to be doing articles like yellow vests and things like that as well. Everything that's kind of out there on the front pages, and obviously things that aren't being discussed as well. So thank you very much to everybody who has.
And even, sorry, before you finish off, one more thing. And even if you're going to say, we're not saying don't comment if you don't believe this stuff. All we're saying is that, more than willing, if you've got issues about it and you want to talk and debate and you want to have a look at research information and, you've got research to present, fine.
Yeah.
If you're going to come on just to bitch and moan about the fact that we're doing the stupid stuff and not willing to have a look at the evidence, then don't bother. It's just a waste, and we're not trying to be nasty or trying to be excluding, but it's negative energy. It just wastes the time. If you're not willing to do the research and have a look for yourself, then I don't see the point of kind of debating with anybody for that.
But if you've got stuff for us to have a look at, then yeah, cool, send it along.
Have a look for it. You know, if you don't believe, you know, if you're unsure, if you know, tell us what you think about this. Has it helped? What other information? You know, is there anything missing? You know, just let us know. Yeah. Peace and love.
Thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoyed this. Let us know what you think. Enjoy the rest of your day. See you later. Bye.